Hey guys, just want to recount one of my, my car road stories, I suppose. One night, I was having one of those nights where, I felt, I was all alone in the world. So I decided, hey, I'm going to go driving at 3 in the morning, I guess so I can feel even more alone in the world. But there's something about driving late at night in the country where I went that just makes me feel really calm. So I went driving in the middle of nowhere. It was one of those streets where sometimes you're driving late home at night, or let's say you're taking a road trip and you go, wow, that would suck if your car broke down there. Well, this is one of those roads. This road had absolutely zero lights on it. Like, I would love to see what this road looks like in the day. I'm sure it's beautiful because it's surrounded by trees. No street lights, just a very small, narrow road leading to nowhere. So I was just out driving. And I was like, man, it's really pretty weather right now. I looked outside, the moon was super bright and it was full. So here I am driving, and I started to think I need to look for this place I used to go to. I forgot how to get there, so I pulled over to the side of the road, and I was aware, that there were ditches, and I was aware that it rained pretty hard the previous night, and I saw a little actually, it's a pretty long stretch of grass, and it looked pretty flat to me. It looked flat to me. So I pulled off to the side of the road so I could look at my phone and look for directions. So once I found the directions, it's kind of funny. I was thinking to myself, all those RC cars I drive, especially those road cars, I was always surprised that they got stuck in the grass. I don't know why I was thinking that, because just as I was pulling out of that grass, my car tire started to spin in place. I'm like, uh-oh, this is kind of scary. So I stopped my car for a second, and I took a separate a route with my car. I turned my wheel, went in reverse, and then I moved a little bit, but then I realized I was going farther and further like this inside my car. I was turning into a ditch, which I did not know was there because, again, it was pitch black and it looked pretty flat to me when I was driving. So the more I drove, the more it started to turn and turn into into this ditch. And eventually I was stuck there. And here's the problem. There weren't cars driving by. So I was like, man, what am I going to do? There's like no cars out here. So I tried to drive again, and the wheels spun more, and I got stuck even more. I stepped out of the car to look at my situation. I turned my camera lights on. Wow, I was really in there, and I can see a little puddle forming around my car. So I was really in a flooded area apparently, which I didn't see until I turned my camera light on. Uh, so I was, feeling alone. I was already feeling alone. I felt even more alone. But then this truck started to drive by, and I turned on my hazard lights. And this truck actually, it saw me, it drove by, and then I saw it slow down, and then it reversed back. And then this young dude and his girlfriend came out. These were country boys. Well, there's a country guy and his girlfriend. Extremely friendly, and he asked if he could help me. So he tried to turn around. He also got stuck in the grass too, on the other side of the road. I was like, crap, this is really bad. If this guy tried to help me and he got stuck in the grass, but he was able to use his own weight and have his girlfriend drive the truck out of his little ditch. So he had the advantage. He was in a truck, and also he wasn't in the ditch as far as I was. So he stopped himself from getting farther and farther, and he had his girlfriend help him drive out. So once he got out, he helped me he asked me if I needed help, which I did. So he tried to do the same thing to my car, but unfortunately my car was so into that mud, he couldn't help. Like, he tried to help, he really did. I even got mud all over him, but he kept telling me to start, accelerating. And I did, and he got mud all over him. Felt really bad. Eventually, he had to give up. He said, "Man, there's nothing he could do. He had nothing in his truck that could get my car out of there. So he had to leave. I told him, don't worry, I'll just call a tow truck. So I eventually called a tow truck. So I called the tow truck. This old lady was on the phone, very, very helpful. I told her my situation. I told her I was in the middle of nowhere. There's no lights anywhere. And then she said, "Oh, so sorry. We'll send someone as soon as we can." So they tried calling people. It took them 2 hours before they reached any tow truck company. So after 2 hours, it was another 90 minutes after that. So about almost 4 hours before I got any kind of roadside assistance. But while I was waiting, I was, walking up and down that street. I was taking pictures of the area using my night mode on my phone. And it was just so surreal because the weather, it reminded me of when I went camping. Shoot. Sorry, guys. Let me pick up my phone. It fell. Well, it reminded me of when I went camping last year. Sorry, guys. Because last year the weather was so, or no, actually it's 2 years ago, because the weather was nice 2 years ago. When I went last year, it was kind of hot. But I was looking up at the moon. That's all I could see was the moon. Eventually my eyes did adjust. But here I am looking at the moon and just thinking about, man, I wish I was camping. It reminded me of those good days when I was camping. And then I looked back at my car, it was still stuck. I wasn't in the Carolinas camping. I was in the middle of nowhere in Florida with my car stuck in the mud. So that was pretty hard. At one point, I was walking back and forth, and I heard really heavy breathing. It sounded like a very large animal, and I heard the trees starting to part, and this thing was getting closer. So I ran back inside my car. It was, by the way, at this point it was hard to open my door because my car was like this, so I had to use a lot of my muscles to pull my door open. So I ran into my car door, but I was getting really uncomfortable sitting like this for like an hour. So I eventually went back out, and I heard that heavy breathing again. So I got the bright idea of using my cell phone to use the night mode. So I used my night mode and took a picture in the general area where that heavy breathing was coming from. So what I saw, it made me feel better. It was just two very large horses just chilling out in the pasture. But I was really scared. I thought it was like a giant, like a giant wild pig maybe. But those things are really dangerous. Or some kind of large animal that could come out and attack, because I was in the middle of nowhere in the woods, so this could have been a very large animal that could hurt me. But when I found out there were horses, I was a little bit more calm. So 4 hours into my ordeal, a tow truck finally came, and the guy made me feel better. He made a joke that I shouldn't be parking my car in the ditch. I was kind of depressed, but it kind of made me feel better that he was, to see another human again when it was pitch black. And his truck was really bright, his tow truck, so that brought civilization back to me. So my car does not have a what do you call it, a little hook for towing. And he explained that to me. He said, "Hey man, your car isn't really equipped for this." So he had to attach his tow truck hook to my I think it was the K-bar. And he said, there could be damage. So I had to sign a liability form. I'm like, dude, just get my car out of here, and that'll be good enough. So after a lot of tweaking, he finally pulled my car out of the ditch, and I felt so relieved. And he was telling me he could have driven my car anywhere, but I was like, you know what, my car is still working. You just need to get my car out of the ditch, and I can drive off on my own. But that was quite the experience. 4 hours in the middle of nowhere, in a place where I promised myself I would never get, stuck. Because that's like the worst place you could get stuck. But there's no lights. There's nobody to help you. And I had a hard time telling the tow truck company where I was, because I didn't know where I was. I had to walk like a mile or so before I found a street. So I had to tell them what street that was, walk back to my car, and then when we finally thought we pinpointed my location, I just waited for them to get there. Um, it was intense though. It's one of those times where I'm like, man, what was I thinking? And because it rains here a lot, I really should be careful pulling into the grass like that. Because my car probably would have got stuck even in flat grass, to be honest, with all that torrential downpour that came the previous night. But I was lucky, you know, the tow truck was able to find me. I was able to find myself. And yeah, I took some pictures of my car as it was, you know, getting towed. I thought it was something that I wouldn't see my car, you know, being in that much. So I took a lot of pictures. I'm like, hey, look at this. This is my car getting towed. Took some video too. But yeah, I guess it's kind of a story. There was one point where a policeman drove by. I was afraid he was gonna, you know, question me and go, hey, are you drunk? You know, how'd you end up in the ditch? But, you know, I was gonna tell him the truth. I pulled over the side of the road to look for directions as my car slowly slid into the abyss. But yeah, none of that happened. It was definitely a late night though, you know, being in the middle of nowhere with no lights, waiting 4 hours for a tow truck. Yeah. So I just want to talk about my story. Do you guys have any weird stories like that where you got stuck in the middle of nowhere and you had to wait for help? Let me know. I want to hear your story.